Look, I know what you're thinking right now. You've got maybe $100 sitting in your account and you're scrolling through your phone wondering how you're ever going to build any real wealth. You see these financial gurus talking about investing thousands of dollars and you're just sitting there like, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm working with lunch money here. Here's the thing though, what if I told you that turning $100 into $1,000 isn't just possible, it's actually been done thousands of times? But here's where it gets really interesting. The method I'm about to show you has nothing to do with crypto, NFTs, or some sketchy get-rich-quick scheme. It's about understanding something that most people completely miss about how money actually grows. Introduction. My name is Auric, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who understand math still make terrible financial decisions. If you're someone who's tired of being broke, tired of feeling like you're always starting from zero, and you're actually ready to do something different with your money, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. The challenge explained. So here's the challenge. Can you turn $100 into $1,000 in 25 weeks by growing your money 10% every single week? On paper, the math is simple. Week 1, you've got $100, you grow it by 10%, now you've got 110. Week 2, you grow that 110 by 10%, now you've got $121. By week 25, if you hit that 10% every single week, you'd have just over $1,083. Now you might be thinking, Auric, that sounds completely unrealistic. How am I supposed to grow my money by 10% every week? And look, you're not wrong to be skeptical, but here's what most people don't realize about this challenge. It's not actually about the 10%, it's about completely rewiring how you think about money, opportunity, and what's actually possible when you start small. The psychology shift. Here's the thing that drives me crazy about traditional financial advice. Everyone tells you to save, invest for the long term, put money in index funds, and that's great advice if you've got money to invest. But if you're starting with $100, putting that into an index fund that grows 7% annually means you'll have about $107 in a year. That's not going to change your life. The 10% weekly challenge forces you to think like an entrepreneur instead of a saver, and this is where the real transformation happens. According to a study from the Kauffman Foundation, over 40% of American households have started some kind of side income stream in the past 5 years. These aren't people quitting their jobs to start the next Amazon. These are regular people who realize that their money could work differently if they treated it like a tool instead of something to hoard. The reality check. Now look, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that hitting 10% growth every single week is easy. It's not. Some weeks you might hit 15%, other weeks you might lose 5%. The actual goal isn't perfection, it's momentum. It's proving to yourself that your money can actually grow when you actively work with it instead of just watching it sit there. Let me give you a real example. Let's say you take that $100 and you buy products from a liquidation sale. You find some brand name items that retail for $300, but you get them for $100 because they're overstock. You list them online and you sell them for $200. You just made a 100% return in maybe a week or two. Now you've got $200 to work with. Here's what happens psychologically when you do this once. You realize that making money isn't this mystical thing that only happens to other people. You start seeing opportunities everywhere. You notice that your neighbor needs their lawn mowed and you've got a mower. That's $20 for an hour of work. You see that people in your local Facebook group are looking for someone to pick up furniture. That's $50 for a few hours and some gas money. The math that matters. Let me show you something that's actually more realistic than hitting 10% every week. Let's say you only hit 10% growth every month. That's way more achievable, right? You start with $100 in January. By December, even with just 10% monthly growth, you'd have about $285. That's still almost 3 times what you started with. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most people who actually commit to this challenge don't just grow their initial $100, they add more money as they go. Because here's what happens. You make your first $50 profit, and suddenly you believe it's possible. So you throw in another $100 from your next paycheck. Now you're working with $250. The opportunities you can take advantage of completely change when you've got more capital to work with. The compound effect. This is where I need you to really pay attention because this is the part that changes everything. The 10% weekly challenge isn't about the money, it's about building what I call financial momentum. See, when you're broke and you think like a broke person, you make broke decisions. You see $100 as something to protect, something to be careful with, something that's going to disappear if you're not careful. But when you start actively growing money, even small amounts, your entire relationship with money shifts. You start asking different questions. Instead of, can I afford this? You start asking, how can I make this work? Instead of seeing $100 as your safety net, you see it as your starting line. There's actually research on this from behavioral economists. A study published in the Journal of Economic Psychology found that people who had even one experience of successfully growing their money through active effort were 3 times more likely to take calculated financial risks in the future compared to people who only saved passively. 3 times more likely. That's not a small difference. Addressing the objections. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Auric, but what do I actually do? You're talking about all this psychology stuff, but I need concrete steps. Fair enough. Here's the thing. The specific method matters way less than the mindset. But since you're asking, let me give you 5 realistic ways people have actually done this. 1. Flipping items. Buy low, sell higher. This works with everything from thrift store finds to clearance items at retail stores. 2. Service arbitrage. Find someone who needs a service, charge them $150, pay someone on TaskRabbit $75 to do it. You just made 75% return in maybe a week or two. 3. Digital products. Create a simple template, guide, or resource, sell it for $10. You only need to sell 10 copies to hit that $100 profit. 4. Skill-based services. If you can do anything better than average, someone will pay you for it. 5. Peer-to-peer lending or micro-investing in local opportunities where you can see exactly where your money is going. Here's what most people don't realize about starting with a small amount of money. It's actually an advantage. When you're working with $100, you can take risks that people with $10,000 won't take. You can test ideas quickly. You can fail and it doesn't destroy you. You can learn what actually works without the paralyzing fear of losing your life savings. The brutal truth. Look, I'm going to be real with you for a second. Most people who start this challenge will quit by week 3. Not because it doesn't work, not because it's too hard, but because they're not actually willing to change how they think about money. They want a magic formula. They want someone to tell them exactly what to do, step by step, so they don't have to think or adapt or learn. But here's the brutal truth about building wealth when you're starting from the bottom. Nobody is coming to save you. No perfect investment is going to fall into your lap. No inheritance is going to show up. The only thing that's going to change your financial situation is you deciding that you're worth more than $100 in your bank account and then proving it to yourself over and over again until you actually believe it. The 10% weekly challenge isn't a get-rich scheme, it's a get-different scheme. It's about becoming the kind of person who sees $100 as ammunition instead of a security blanket. It's about proving to yourself that you can create value, that you can spot opportunities, that you can execute on ideas. The real goal. Here's what I want you to understand. The goal isn't actually to turn 100 into 1,000 in 25 weeks. I mean, that would be great if it happens, but the real goal is to completely shatter your limiting beliefs about what's possible with the money you have right now. Because here's what happens when you successfully grow your money even once. You realize that you've been sitting on opportunity your entire life, and you just couldn't see it because you were too focused on what you didn't have instead of what you could do with what you did have. I've seen people do this challenge and fail to hit the numbers, but completely transform their financial lives anyway. Why? Because they developed the muscle of looking for opportunity. They trained themselves to think creatively about money. They proved to themselves that they could create value in the world. And here's where it gets really interesting. Once you've turned 100 into 300 or 500 or even just 200, you start thinking bigger. You realize that if you could do that with 100, you could do it with 1,000. And if you could do it with 1,000, you could do it with 10,000. So here's what I want you to do right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Look at your bank account and find $100 that you can commit to this challenge.
If you don't have 100, find 50. If you don't have 50, find 20. The amount doesn't actually matter as much as the commitment to treating it differently than you've treated money before. Then I want you to ask yourself one question. What's one thing I could do this week that would grow this money by even 10%? Not 100%, not 50%, just 10%. Could you sell something you don't use anymore? Could you offer to help someone with something you're good at? Could you buy something on sale and sell it for more? Could you create something digital and sell it? The answer is yes, you absolutely could. The question is whether you will, and that's entirely up to you. The math works, the opportunity is there, the only variable is whether you're willing to step up and prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you currently believe. Subscribe if you want more real talk about building wealth from the ground up, and give this video a thumbs up if you're actually going to take the challenge. I'll see you in the next one.